morning, everybody. Bang on 11:15 in the morning on a wonderful Thursday. It's Talk to Me Nice Thursdays on TRAXX Momentum. My name is Anil on the mic, and it is now time for Face to Face on TRAXX Momentum. And today we're going to talk about Malaysia and China's 50 years of bilateral relationship. This year marks the 50th anniversary, half a century of the diplomatic relations between Malaysia as well as the People's Republic of China following the signing of a joint communique between former Prime Minister Tun Abdul Razak and also the Premier of China then, Zhou Enlai, back in 1974. Fast forward 50 years later, we're going to reminisce and look at how this partnership has benefited us and looking ahead and how it can further enrich both countries. And to talk to us about this, I have in the studios Professor Dr. Azmi Hassan. He's a fellow at the National Council of Professors. Professor, good morning.
Good morning, Anil.
Welcome to TRAXX.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
The last time around, I had a conversation with you over the phone.
Yes.
And now it's very good and encouraging to meet the person, the man himself,
yeah,
sitting right in front.
Face to face.
Face to face. It's face to face after all, right?
Yes.
Okay. So let's start off. Malaysia became actually the first country in ASEAN to establish relationships with China, and it's a formidable force in the Pacific, China, as you know it. How do you describe Malaysia-China relations thus far?
Yeah, but I know China, if you go back
Sure.
50 years ago, China was nowhere, was in the backwaters.
Right.
So for our Prime Minister, Tun Abdul Razak, to have a diplomatic relation, the first one in ASEAN,
Right.
and we have to remember at that particular time, we are still facing the threat of communism. It's still there.
Right.
But I think Tun Abdul Razak sees far ahead. And I guess it's been up and down, our relationship with China and also Malaysia. But China, I know right now, is, I would say, a force.
Global force.
One of the superpowers. Maybe can replace United States of America. So I guess a correct decision was made 50 years ago. And we are here right now to make good use of these relationships.
Right.
There is up and down, but again, we take the benefit. It's a win-win situation, no doubt about that. It's a win-win situation, I know.
You see, Professor, one thing when you establish relationships with foreign countries, bilateral relationships, is also very important to maintain and nurture that relationship. So what do you think, in your opinion, is the driving force behind the relationship that Malaysia has with the People's Republic of China?
I would say mutual trust between the leaders. I think at that time, Zhou Enlai and Tun Razak, and right now, President Xi Jinping and Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim, I think the mutual trust is there.
Okay.
I think we are from the eastern part. So the trust between two persons, between two leadership, it is very, very critical. Okay. And the way we think, Beijing think, and Kuala Lumpur think, is very, very parallel. So when we said China is our big brother, it can be interpreted wrongly or misinterpreted by the Western because they think it differently.
I think that's the narrative that the West has been painting, that China is this big brother in this Pacific. Yeah.
But I say, China is a big brother, but in a way, in the Eastern way. So I guess to answer your question, I know mutual trust. And more importantly, mutual respect. Because China is a big power, superpower. They can take advantage of a small country like Malaysia anytime. Yes, it do happen once in a while, but that's not the majority of the time.
Okay. This year also marks the 11th anniversary of the establishment of the China-Malaysia Comprehensive Strategic Partnership.
Yep.
And as you mentioned, it is concentrated between Beijing and KL. It's the Beijing and KL relationship. That's where the concentration of power is. And it actually paved the path to track of a comprehensive, a mutual, and a mature development. So tell us more about the China-Malaysia Comprehensive Strategic Partnership, and how do you think Malaysia has benefited from it?
The usual relationship, diplomatic, economic relationship is regarding, economic matters only. But when you upgrade it into the strategic comprehensive, it encompasses other matters, other factors, education, social, not only on economic, and more importantly, Anil, is about geopolitics. And we know that we have problem with China, with Beijing regarding the South China Sea issue. We have a problem there. But I cannot recall that the problem perpetuate into a physical confrontation. Never, I would say that.
Okay.
They encourage in our EEZ quite very often, but we use our friendship, our diplomatic channel as it is.
Right.
To say maybe, let's say Philippines, for example.
Yes, they've got a lot of issues with
There are a lot of
the water issues with
yeah,
China.
the problem is Manila and Beijing have the same problem as Putrajaya and Beijing. But why does Manila has a physical, always physical confrontation? I think the reason is that mutual trust.
Right.
We respect each other. I think that encompasses everything, the comprehensive strategic partnership, Anil.
Okay. I think you've nailed that well very clearly, that the fundamental essence of this relationship is based on mutual trust. Yeah? Okay. Thank you very much for your thoughts in this first half of the interview, Professor. We'll jump in for a quick break. When we come back, we shall resume with our interview today. Today on Face to Face, right here on Tracks Momentum, I'm speaking to Professor Dr. Azmi Hassan. He's a fellow at the National Council of Professors, and Professor Azmi is today talking to us about Malaysia and China celebrating its 50 years of bilateral relations. Don't go anywhere. Face to Face. We'll be right back. Good morning to you and welcome back to Face on Tracks Momentum. My name is Anil on the mic, and today Face with me in the studios is Professor Dr. Azmi Hassan, a fellow at the National Council of Professors, and Professor Dr. Azmi is today speaking to us about the Malaysia and China's 50 years of bilateral relations. Professor, welcome back to Face to Face. Now, earlier on before the break, we established that, the importance or the fundamental essence of this relationship between Malaysia and China lies in mutual trust, the trust that these two countries, the Beijing-Kuala Lumpur trust. Now, in your opinion, why is it important for Malaysia and China to continue to deepen its bilateral ties for economic and diplomatic advancements, Professor?
Yeah, Anil, first, in terms of economic front, China is our biggest trading partner. No doubt about that.
Right.
But that is United States. So in economic matters, it is very important that we deepen our relationship. And 2 years ago, RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, 10 ASEAN nation plus China, New Zealand, South Australia. I think this is the biggest FTA. And I think it creates a big opportunity for us because China is a big market, Ane.
Yeah.
No doubt about that. It's a big market. But also, when we open up our economic window, China goods will be coming to Malaysia. But I think we are ready for that. I think that's the main reason why we are part of RCEP. And if you look at United States, they put a 300% tariff on electric vehicle from China. Not because they are accusing China of giving subsidies. No, it's because of the competition.
Yeah.
I think Tesla is facing because you mentioned Elon Musk just now.
Yes. Oh,
so I just keeping about Tesla about this. I think it's very, very critical. That's on economic front, Anil. But more important thing is that economic and geopolitics have been mingled together. The border has been blurred. I think the economic trade war between the United States and China, we are in the middle actually, because the United States has been pushing Malaysia, for example, be more friendlier toward United States. But we are taking a stand that we are not with United States or more heavily on China. No, we don't do that.
Right.
We are neutral. Whatever benefit for us, we'll be friendly to China or United States. I think that's our stand. But again, I think there's a misconception that when we say China is our big brother, it's not the real big brother. But we look at them because of the economic and geopolitical stability.
And there's a lot we can learn from them as well in terms of how they have progressed in leaps and bounds. As you mentioned earlier on when we started the conversation, once upon a time China was a country that was in famine and so on and so forth, but now they're a force to be reckoned with. Touching on you mentioning that China being Malaysia's biggest trading partners, it's the 15th consecutive year since 2009. It makes about 17.1% to over this last 15 years. And what do you think will the trading landscape be like between Malaysia and China moving forward, henceforth?
Well, it all depends on China. If China is very healthy, we do export a lot to China and vice versa. So I guess it cannot go bad or I think worse than what we are having right now. Because during the pandemic, Anil, our economic relationship with China remained stable. In fact, much better compared to the pre-pandemic. It shows how healthy is our, I would say, trade activities with China. But I think we have an ups and down relationship with China, with Beijing, not because of Beijing politics, but because of our own politics. I think that's the reason. I think we have to tread it very carefully. Our leadership tread it very carefully because whatever relationship we have with Beijing, it will affect our local politics. So that's, I would say, a very interesting part.
Right. What do you think are some of the products or the exports from Malaysia that will be appealing to the Chinese market, Professor?
Well, I wouldn't say that durian because they are producing their own durian.
They love our durian.
Yeah, especially the musang king.
Yes.
I think the agricultural products.
That demand has actually boosted the agricultural landscape in our country.
That's right. I think that's what we export a lot, agricultural products and also electronic products. But more importantly is that, Anil, what we can gain from China.
Right.
I think that's more important because China can offer technology to us with a comparable or cheaper price.
Right.
But the technology is comparable with other advanced nations. 5G, for example, China can provide us.
Yes.
Of course, another state will be telling us, be careful with Huawei because it's controlled by Beijing. Be careful with TikTok, for example. It is controlled by Beijing. But again, we don't easily influenced by that particular perception
Right.
coming from the other side.
Okay. Let's jump in for another quick break, Professor. When we come back, we'll touch on more in terms of Malaysia and China trading. Today on Face to Face, I'm speaking to Professor Dr. Azmi Hassan. He's a fellow at the National Council of Professors, and he's today sharing his thoughts with us on Malaysia and China, celebrating its 50 years, half a century of bilateral relations. Don't go anywhere. Face to Face, we'll be right back. morning to you, and welcome back to Face on Tracks Momentum. My name is Anil on the mic. Now, in 1974, Malaysia and also the People's Republic of China signed a joint communique, which was actually signed by former Prime Minister Tun Abdul Razak as well as the Chinese Premier Zhou Enlai. And fast forward 50 years later, a lot has happened in terms of bilateral relationships for economic and also many other advancements in, between both these countries. That's Shanghai and also Kuala Lumpur. And to talk to us about this, we have in the studios Professor Dr. Azmi Hassan, who is a fellow at the National Council of Professors, and we will now resume with our discussion. Professor, welcome back to Face to Face. Now, Professor, in 2023, trade between Malaysia and China reached a staggering 450.84 billion, which accounts for 17.1% of Malaysia's global trade. And in that same year as well, there were 64 manufacturing projects with investments totaling up to 12 billion that were approved. And China has been ranked as the fifth largest investor in Malaysia. Now, the question that I want to ask you with that statement is, with these projects that are expected to create about 9,000 plus jobs, what can Malaysia do to maintain its appeal to China?
Well, Anil, first of all, for the last 20 minutes, you have been steering me towards economy.
Yeah.
But I tried to pull back towards geopolitics. Because when talking about relationship between China and Malaysia,
right,
I think there is a blurring between economy and geopolitics. But again, I think talking about how Malaysia can appeal to Beijing is that, again, I go towards, we are both from the eastern part of the world.
Okay.
We understand each other. The leadership is comfortable. President Xi Jinping comfortable talking to Datuk Sri Anwar and vice versa, because we are from the eastern part. We understand the mutual trust is there. And again, talking about economic matters, Anil, I guess we mentioned off air about BRI, the Belt Road Initiative. There is a negative connotation to it, because the Western have been said China has been using BRI to control certain ASEAN nation, for example, in terms of economic matters. This same that when they say Huawei cannot be trusted, TikTok also cannot be trusted. There's a connotation. But I guess BRI is a mutual benefit. For example, between Malaysia and also China. I took one simple example, ECRL, Anil. I've been waiting for ECRL for a long time. Why? Every time Hari Raya, it's very hard for me to go back to my kampung, which is Pasir Mas, Kelantan.
Wow.
Because it's going to take 15, 16 hours. So I've been waiting for ECRL. But without BRI is part of ECRL project, we cannot afford it. Because the technology, we need the technology and part of the financial part of it. So one good example is I always use about BRI. Yes, there is some negative connotation, but it's coming from the other side.
Okay.
I think BRI, ECRL for Malaysia is a win-win situation, Anil. I'm not sure about you, Anil. I'm sure you are not from Kelantan.
No, I'm not.
But anyone from Kelantan has been waiting for ECRL.
They understand your sentiment, yeah?
Yes, I'm sure for it.
So, at the moment, how do you describe the Malaysia-China diplomatic ties, and how do you think both countries can continuously, perpetually benefit from this?
Let me use one analogy
that
has not been known in the media. In 2020, West Capella was a drilling ship, Petronas, hired by Petronas. During the 2 months, research work, West Capella, in our EEZ, Economic Exclusive Zone, it was shadowed by China Coast Guard. For 2 months. And at that particular time, the president of the United States was President Trump. He sent 2 warships. He said to the then Prime Minister, Tan Sri Mahyudin, is to protect Malaysia from being bullied by China. We nearly go to war with China, but nobody knows about it because we don't want to, play up the issue. But again, Wisma Putra said, we are not against China. We are not against the United States, because whatever benefit us, we take it. I think that's the crux of our relationship with Beijing. Even though we have a problem, but we diplomatically use our East-to-East brotherly relationship to say that, hey, we have a problem here. Can we resolve it? I think that's the way. That's how we are different from Vietnam. That's how we are different from Manila, Anil.
Right.
So it is a very, very interesting relationship. I have another example, but I keep that.
Yeah.
Because you like to talk about economy right now.
Yeah.
Anil.
Okay. So now, since you mentioned about geopolitics, yes, I've somehow or other meandered you to pull you to talk about economics. Now let's touch on geopolitics.
Yes.
Now, considering everything that has happened, both countries have benefited a great deal economically. How do you see Malaysia and China's geopolitical, diplomatic relationships developing over the years?
Yeah, what's ever happening in South China Sea is a good example.
Okay.
Yes, we have a problem with Beijing, but Beijing is our number one trade partner. How can that happen? We have never have physical, I would say,
Yeah.
physical confrontation with China, even though the problem is so acute, similar with Manila. I think the relationship, I think it's a good example to the other parts of the world, how you can handle between one superpower and a smaller country like Malaysia.
Touching on that, I want you to provide us, give us a picture. Now, of course, we know when two countries go to war, of course, military capabilities, everyone flexes their muscles. But, diplomatic relationship, diplomatic negotiations, that's something our country, Malaysia, has excelled in over the last, many years. Of course, we're dealing with all of our issues. Give us a picture of how things are actually done when it comes to negotiating in diplomacy.
It's totally different when Kuala Lumpur talk with Washington.
Okay.
It's totally different when Kuala Lumpur talk with Beijing. Because what we see, Anil, is you mentioned we are very good at it, but you never know what happens behind the wall, at the back burner.
Okay.
That's what we call, Malaysia call pulas tangan, It's been happening.
Okay.
But with our relationship with Beijing, I guess it is much easier.
Okay.
Because we understand each other. Compared to the United States, they want us to be with them in terms of geopolitics or in terms of economic. But we want to be in the middle. Okay. As the Malaysia, Anil, Malaysia main dua kolam. It doesn't matter because it benefits us. I think that's the crux of the diplomatic world. We see in front, it's so very nice. Everybody is smiling. But on the negotiating table, I guess, is a hard ball game.
It's tussling, a lot of tussling
it's a lot
going
of tussling. So you need to be very strong in negotiating, Anil.
But I think it's also good to know that Malaysia actually takes a neutral stand when it comes to these kinds of issues. Professor Dr. Azmi Hassan, thank you so much for spending the last 30 minutes with us. It was such a fruitful conversation. We learned a lot from you today. Is there anything else you wish to add before we let you go?
Can I have 60 seconds?
Of course.
On geopolitics?
60 seconds.
60 seconds. And on 1st June 2020, I've been preparing for this.
Okay.
I'm sure you heard the news about 16 Chinese aircraft nearly encroaching
our airspace.
But how we handle that, I would say, is very superb. It did not become a political furor. It didn't become a chastised between Beijing and Kuala Lumpur, because how we handle that is we respect you, China respect us. Because I need another 2 minutes to explain what's happening.
Okay.
But since you gave me only 60 seconds,
I
stopped there. No, it's okay. I think I stopped there.
I will give you exclusive privilege. Take 2 minutes. Explain it to us. Yes.
No, at that particular time, 1st June 2020 was I would say the Hari Ulang Tahun for TUDM.
Okay.
And
the anniversary for the Air Force.
Anniversary for Air Force. How we got to know the incident is that the Air Force took some, I would say, unprecedented step to announce it on their Facebook. Okay. That's very interesting. But China don't see that as a threat to them. They see that as a respect to Malaysia. So that's the story behind that, because our media did not play that particular issue. Our media only play that they put a picture how TUDM aircraft intercepted the 16 Chinese aircraft. But how we came to know about that, I think, is a coup for us. Diplomatically, is a coup. Strategically, is a coup. That's how we handle our relationship with Beijing. Even though Beijing militarily, they are much superior, but we can handle it in terms of brothership, brotherly. What I meant is.
Okay.
Thank you, Anil.
All right, you're welcome. I think we can conclude whatever the issues are between Malaysia and China when it comes to waters or anything like that. When it comes to the economic front, we definitely have a common goal, and we've got not much issues going on over there. Professor, thank you so much for spending your time, and we look forward to having you in the studios again. Thank
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. All right, that's a wrap for today's edition of Face to Face. I just spoke to Professor Dr. Azmi Hassan, a fellow at the National Council of Professors, and he spoke to us today about Malaysia and China celebrating 50 years of bilateral relationships, which goes beyond economic to geopolitics, and how Malaysia has handled many sort of minor issues that we have faced with China, but still managed to be steadily progressing on the economic front. If you missed out on this very fruitful discussion that I had today with Professor Dr. Azmi, you can catch the replay by visiting TRAXXfm's official Facebook page or our official YouTube channel. Once again, this has been Face to Face with me, Anil, on the mic.